So, first of all, Trudie, thank you for doing this, for sitting down and talking with us during this very busy time. Your Rainforest concert is this week. How much work is that, by the way? A ton, it must be.
Well, it's a ton, but it's incredibly collaborative, and we begin thinking about it sort of like about a year in advance, and this is our 17th one at Carnegie Hall.
You have such extraordinary talent performing at these concerts. Are people excited and really willing to do so? Because I think you started doing this before a lot of charitable organizations began to enlist the help of big stars like this.
Yeah, I think it might be sort of unique in the way that we began it by having the show at Carnegie Hall. Then we have sort of like surprise guests and then different themes and then a sort of grand and beautiful dinner where we raise stuff at the auction. I think that was sort of like began a trend in 1989, so I'm quite proud of that.
So people really want to be a part of it.
Yeah, and the audience is it's like 90% have been coming back all these years. So
how much have you raised?
About $30 million.
You must feel very proud of that.
I do feel very proud, and I do feel though that, you know, there is no cause for real celebration, because I think the planet is in such a sort of terrible state that I actually have a big pull in my heartstrings when we're out there and we're sort of trying to rally people to say, please, you know, think about this situation. We're here to have fun. We're here to raise money for a great cause. But really, the cause is something that I think there needs to be far more focus on as we journey through our lives on planet Earth in 2010. I think that we're in trouble.
Well, let's talk about the cause. Let's focus on that. You got involved with the Rainforest over 20 years ago. How did it happen? Why were you so inspired to want to do something about the situation?
Well, our chance sort of visit to the rainforest, if you could have such a thing, Sting and me were invited to go and spend 3 days in the rainforests of Brazil, and there was a meeting of Kayapo indigenous people, really because they were afraid that their lands were being decimated by oil companies and by loggers, miners, and they wanted to have their lands demarcated and ratified so that they would be in perpetuity their lands. And Sting and me were very caught up in this argument, and we said, well, what can we do? And Raoni, the Kayapo chief, I'm sure you've seen pictures of, said, you know, can you do a concert? And Sting said, no, it's too important a message. You should come and give your message. And what his message was at that time was quite simply this. He said, there's a lot of smoke, and my people are getting very sick. But whatever happens in my lands today, in the rainforest today, will affect you all in your homes tomorrow. And 21 years later, you know, we hear those as prophetic words as we see global climate change is real. The planet is warming up. The degradation of the forest continues. The plight of the indigenous people gets worse. And not enough is being done.
Give me a Rainforest 101 primer, if you could, for people who may not be familiar with why it's so important to preserve the rainforests and to leave them be, if you will.
Well, our rainforests are the lungs of the earth. They really they keep the air very clean, and they keep the air very fresh. If we start to degrade the rainforest, the carbon's emissions will intensify, and without the right amount of oxygen in the air, we suffer. And that's the kind of like that's a very primary kind of. You need to speak to a climatologist for the sort of the more scientific version. But you know, I'm happy to see that kids, at least in school, are starting to learn what the values of keeping our rainforests intact are. I think one of my main concerns, and this is a sort of a huge sort of world constitution question, is that the world's development is predicated on growth, and the way that I see things, we can't afford to grow much more, and growth meaning, you know, how much more product can we put into the world. we don't need more products. We actually need less, and we need to start to think of the value of a tree not being in a mahogany sideboard, but its value being intrinsically there in the ground and flourishing and giving out the carbon dioxide that we surely need. We don't need carbon's emissions from the, from our traffic that is out of control, bad, that is poisoning our atmosphere.
How do you balance, though, the need for environmentalism with what other people will say, the need for industry and a strong economy? You know, some people will say, yes, the rainforest needs to be preserved, and yet people need to work, and we know we need productivity. Can you somehow balance those two missions?
It's difficult, isn't it? But while we are absolutely, our whole lives, all of our lives are predicated on our oil consumption, which is the absolute addiction of this planet. But I think that it's going to be the downfall of our existences if we don't start to put real effort and money and energy into an alternative to oil. I work down in Ecuador, where we see the plight of the indigenous people there. They've had their lands decimated by Chevron, the oil company, and that they have no clean water. They have no good land to grow anything on. And this to me is sort of like just an example of how we're just completely ignorant of what their plight is. It doesn't apply to us because it's not in our backyard. Now cut to the Gulf disaster, everybody is suddenly going, oh my God, this is in our backyard. We might not have the flora and fauna that we had. All our fishing industries are going to perish. What will happen to us? But it is this not in my backyard mentality that I think gets us into a lot of trouble. And I've had the honor and privilege of going down into rainforests of the world and seeing for myself, when the lights are off, the dirty practices that go on in far off places, like in our precious rainforests. And sort of like there you see a microcosm of what hell is really like for the people who lived with good air, with good water. They could fish from their streams, they could raise their children, who were joyful in this sort of beautiful, simple lives that they were living. Along comes the oil companies or the miners and loggers. They just take it all away. And they're left with nothing but illness. The people that I meet in Ecuador, as mother and daughter, I visited 18-year-old daughter, 39-year-old mother, both with cancer of the liver, cancer of the uterus. And she took me down, the mom took me down to her stream, and I put my nose to the stream and it stinks of petroleum. And she showed me her animals, and they just die because they go down to the stream to take the water, and she can't even raise chickens. This is what it's like down there. And we don't, I think that we are so protective of our own selves, it's hard for us to think of people who live in those conditions while we get on, in our fast cars and we live our more comfortable existences. But, one of the reasons that we're ferocious with our foundation is because we very much, the indigenous people, a lot of them over the course of 21 years have become our friends. We feel close to them, and we really feel that we'd like to champion their cause.
Do you feel optimistic that alternative sources of energy are being developed? It seems as if we're at least headed in the right direction, if not quickly enough, with solar power and wind power and obviously cars that get more mileage per gallon. Do you feel that Americans are waking up to the need for this?
I do feel that they're waking up for the need, and there seems to be a groundswell of support. I don't think that there's been enough from our governments, like Copenhagen was an unmitigated disaster. I addressed the General Assembly 5 days before they went to Copenhagen, and there was a lot of optimism that something tangible would come from Copenhagen, and nothing came from Copenhagen. nothing at all. So it was an entire waste of resources, getting all those people there, the effort and the energy. Huge amounts of money and time was spent on it, and it generated absolutely nothing. Everybody got there and they froze, like rabbits in the headlights. No, we can't pony up. We need courage. We need courageous people to say, from the government level, we have to address alternative energies in a big way, and it'll all trickle down from there. You know, our governments need to give the scientists great courage and great hope and incentivize them by saying, yes, we're behind you. And until that happens, I fear that all these alternatives are just lip service.
And what do you think of the backlash that we've seen really in the last year, I would say, against the whole notion of climate change? In fact, in a recent Gallup poll, 48% of Americans said the seriousness of global warming is generally exaggerated, up from 41% in 2009 and 31% in 1997. Why do you think there's increasing skepticism about the notion of global warming, with people saying it really isn't man-made, it's sort of the natural course of events for the world?
I think that this sort of like 11th hour fear mentality, when people really feel that there's an impending disaster, I think there's a big shutdown, I think people can go into a sense of denial about it. There are enough climatologists that say the opposite of that, of course, and they ameliorate with their arguments those arguments that you've just said, that, you know, the X% are saying it's an absolute greenwash, there is no global warming. I do not think that that is so. You know, we see the ice caps are melting. We see the plight of the polar bears. We see our, you know, animals are suffering. I go down to the rainforests and see what deforestation does, and it continues. Climate change is for real, in my humble opinion.
Is it frustrating to hear this, to hear about the backlash, to hear people say, you know, come on, this isn't as bad as they claim, and no, almost mocking the whole movement in a way?
Is it frustrating? You know, it's frustrating when there's a 13-year court case that's gone on with 30,000 Indigenous people and against the 5th largest corporation in the world. A very responsible documentary was made.
Crude.
It was called Crude, about the plight of these people, about the court case.
In Ecuador, and Chevron is the company you're referring to.
I'm referring to Chevron, and the country is in Ecuador, where this court case battles on into its 14th year now. I was one of the participants in Crude, and the film had quite a lot of success. And now Chevron, because they can, they've subpoenaed Joe Berlinger's 600 hours of uncut footage, and the judge has given the judgment in favor of the materials being subpoenaed. Now, this to me is a huge frustration, because the First Amendment says that there's freedom of speech in this fair country, and I've always sort of looked to America to sort of be so proud of that as a British person, that you know, it's much easier for us to be sued in England, but in America, this is the country where you can speak out and speak your truth. And Joe Berlinger is a phenomenal, responsible documentarian. Paradise Lost, My Brother's Keeper, you know, wonderful credentials. And to me it seems, how can this be in this age when we are looking at corporations and looking at malpractices? How could it be that this company now wins a judgment in favor of taking this man's footage, all of it, to be disgorged at will wherever they want? If they want to YouTube, if they want to put it out virally, they can. This is unheard of. Why should we let this happen?
I guess they're suggesting that he stands that the law firm, I guess, working with the Indigenous people, stand to profit if they win a class action suit. Is that sort of the allegation behind the subpoena?
But isn't the responsibility on Chevron to go and get their own facts? They don't need to be coming to a filmmaker and to say, I need your footage to prove this. They're certainly well-heeled enough to go and find out for themselves the information that they want. And perhaps on the way, they should go down to Ecuador and see what I see. Perhaps they'll come back with softer hearts.
Why do you think the cutting and burning of rainforests doesn't stop?
Well, the cutting and burning of rainforests has slowed down because I think of initiatives like ours and many others that have put on a lot of pressure onto governments to stop. But it doesn't cease because there's too much vested in growth, in big business.
How do, somebody tweeted us a question for you, Trudie, Joseph Harmon. How do we change the economics so that there is no financial incentive to destroy the rainforest? Is that possible?
I think, I'd probably say that, when we have a disaster like the BP disaster and like Exxon, that the companies are held accountable. Because what I hear is that, there's no feeling of huge accountability here. Is Obama going to make BP really pay for this? Or is he wagging his finger and saying, you should be accountable? Because you should be accountable is not, you are, and here's the bill, and we'll give you till this time to pay it, and that's the cleanup. That's what I see is lacking, that we keep on hearing about, you should be accountable. I never seem to hear, you are, and here's the bill, go clean up.
Shark Goddess tweets, what can everyday people realistically do to help save the rainforest rather than just give out money blindly? And I think this is a great question, and maybe you can speak up, Trudie, a little bit. What does the $30 million that you've raised actually go to?
Well, our $30 million, we're spread across 23 countries now in most of the tropical rainforests in the world, and we work very closely with the people on the ground, indigenous people, and with our affiliate organizations who have program offices, and we create programs that are very much about empowering the indigenous to understand who their foes are and how
what their rights are,
and who their foes are, what their rights are, how to stand up for their rights against their foes. And we've won a couple of campaigns, legal campaigns in Brazil, where we've empowered 2 indigenous groups in court. So we're spread across the board with what we've done in our 21 years.
Is there anything what she was asking about, like people can do on a daily basis, or is there anything they can do if they don't want to just donate money, that they can feel as if they're contributing to saving the rainforests or helping preserve them?
Well, I think that we should look at our lives in a holistic way. First of all, by becoming conscious that the ground we walk on is hallowed ground, that we are stewards of the planet that we occupy. We're not owners. And I think just having that shift in mentality will really help a lot. So when you become a steward rather than an owner, you're really thinking ahead to the planet belonging to someone else. And so my invitation would be to tread more lightly, to, if you can drive a car that's a hybrid car, something like a Toyota Prius, there are many hybrids around now, to ease off on the consumption of oil as much as you can, to do stuff like turning your computers from sleep to off. That saves a whole lot of carbon dioxide releases, a huge amount actually. But it's all these things that most people know about. It's just having the shift in consciousness that you're not an owner, you're a steward.
That's a nice way of putting it. You're renting. You're a renter, right? And you have to keep it, or you're going to pay the price. And the people who rent it after you will pay the price as well.
Exactly. It's a beautiful planet. We should share it and leave it in a pristine state for those who come after.
Do you ever feel demoralized? You've worked so hard on this, and yet, as you said, you're worried about the state of the planet right now, do you ever feel like, gosh, it's just so immense, so enormous, such a huge undertaking? Am I really making a difference?
Well, I don't feel demoralized. I get sad because when I'm there, I see sort of hopeful faces, and when I go to the rainforest, and I've met so many extraordinary indigenous people, and like when I went down to Ecuador to look at the crude situation, the crude movie situation, I had no idea what I was going to be seeing, and I can't get caught up in a legal case. I have no expertise as a legal person, but I thought, well, you know, what could I do? And so I said to this one Ecuadorian lady who lived in a village where this contamination is rife, I said, you know, Carmen, what can I do to help? And she said, lady, bring us some water. And so I initiated this campaign, which is going very well, where I've joined hands with UNICEF and our Rainforest Fund, and we're bringing clean and fresh water to the indigenous people in this contaminated area. For the first time in 3.5 decades, they're getting pristine, clear water, and we've brought in these great big robust tanks, and the tanks catch the rainwater from the tropical rainforest. It's acidic rain because of the contamination, but we put in a purification system, and then a second tank gets the clean water delivered, and they have faucets, and they're drinking clean water, and that's a good feeling.
Oh, hello. We've got a special guest, a special friend. Come in here, mister.
My best friend.
Yeah.
Where am I going?
How are you? Pull up a chair. Sit for a second. She did an excellent job.
She did.
Yes, she did. She was a little bit nervous.
No, don't go.
I am going
No,
to go.
don't go, don't go, don't go.
don't go,
So we've been
please.
talking a lot, obviously, about this cause, which is something, you know, it's nice because I think oftentimes celebrities are committed to something, but it's a little bit of a superficial commitment, and clearly this is something you both care deeply about and have for a long, long time.
21 years.
And Trudie talked a little, Sting, about why, but let me ask you, why?
Because she told me to. Yeah, we both had the opportunity at the same time to go to the rainforest and see how amazing it is, and also to see how much destruction there is, and how, if we don't do anything, it will completely go. And so we were asked to do something. We had no idea what it was we could do, and found out. We learned, you know, on the job, as it were. And 21 years later, our foundation is still going strong, and mainly due to Trudie, I would say. I'm just the dumb blonde, you know, sort of mascot.
The
But
dumb
she's the
blonde.
brains behind the whole thing. She is.
Well, you're blonde.
I used to be blonde.
You know, I was talking to Trudie about this earlier, and there's been a bit of a backlash against sort of the whole notion of climate change,
Oh, that's nonsense.
against
That's complete-
environmentalism in some
It's
ways.
such nonsense, you know. I think people who
Where do you think it's coming from, and why?
from big business. It's inconvenient, as Mr. Gore said, you know. I think people who deny climate change, people like, they jump out of the 20th floor of a hotel and they say, hey, like, nothing's happening. When you hit the bottom, something happens, you know. We are in this downward spiral. We got to stop it.
The emails by those British researchers were not particularly helpful, but they were vindicated ultimately.
They have
but
been
they gave a
vindicated.
lot of fuel to the anti-climate change
But that's not big
naysayers.
news, though, is it, anymore? The fact that those emails were just bogus. I think that, you know, the evidence is incontrovertible. The climate is getting warmer.
There are others who say, you know, the green movement is backed by limousine liberals. You know, they're telling us to turn off our appliances and unplug things while they're flying around in private jets. You've heard that criticism,
Of course
certainly.
we have. Of course we have massive carbon footprints. The two of us do, but we're trying to do something. We've planted a lot of trees, and we try to save a lot of trees.
And you've raised a lot of money to save the rainforest. Having said that, is it something you think about? Do you fly privately? Do you try to avoid that now?
Can't afford it anymore.
real?
I follow Trudie and turn the lights off as we go through the house, which annoys her. She bumps
No, but
into things.
you know what I'm saying, though. Some people will say, you know, walk the walk, too.
No, we do.
No, we've certainly cut down on a lot of private flying. That really doesn't exist anymore. Occasionally, yes, it does. If it can get us to our families that, you know, we're missing out on like a graduation or something like that, we'll do it. But we feel really very, very responsible that we don't like to do that. You know, Sting travels, he tours, that's part of his life. And what we do is we try to make our contribution by, you know, we head up this organization, we raise a lot of money, we raise a lot of awareness. But he's not going to give up being Sting, and I'm not going to be giving up going to Ecuador and seeing what I can do to help there and going to visit my family where I can. What we're saying is that we're looking for an alternative to oil at some point, and we think it should come from government level, and that there needs to be, you know, very ferocious campaigning on this.
How have your children been affected by your work? I know my daughters have watched for 12 years my involvement with raising awareness about colon cancer, and I see that it has had an impact. And how are your children living their lives, or how have they been affected by this work that you've been doing most of their lives, right? If not all of their lives, for some of them.
Well, Joe doesn't even ride in cars. Just
No,
Sting's eldest son, and
he walks everywhere.
He walks and goes on bikes everywhere. He's our true green warrior. The kids are very conscious of global warming, and are very sort of actively involved in their own lives in, you know, just doing it better than we did. Are very conscious, and have supported the Rainforest Fund all their lives.
Which is
In
nice, right?
fact, Jake, our 24-year-old who's just graduated from NYU, was in the Yanomami territory up in Boa Vista, because this is a group who are beset with the dams and miners encroaching on their lands, and he was there with a camera to go and capture that for us for a film that we're making. So it was great to have him 21 years after us sort of go down there and visit the indigenous people. They were very happy to meet our son.
They're all card-carrying tree huggers, all of them.
It's nice, though, to have them share your passion, right? I mean, and
It is.
And it is about shifting people's attitude generation by generation when it comes to a lot of different things, I think, in the way people operate in this country and throughout the world. I've got a couple. I know you guys want to get back to the rehearsal, which was really a thrill to watch. But
we want to get you back into it.
She was singing along with me.
Yeah, I was.
Like a virgin.
Material girl. More. But someone asked us to ask you, Sting, how you discovered yoga, which I know something Trudie does all the time, and the impact it's had on your life.
Well, Trudie and I discovered it at the same time. We met this guy called Danny, and he just walked into my studio one day and started to show me yoga. And I was very fit. I'd always stayed fit. And I thought it looked easy, and so I tried to do it, and I couldn't. I was embarrassed. So I said, come to our house tomorrow. And he met Trudie, and we all started on that same day, and that was like 21 years ago.
Yeah.
And there hasn't really been a day gone by when we haven't done something. And I personally think it's given me another decade or two of my career. I feel very healthy and strong. Certainly my singing, it's helped my singing. I have lung power. I think it's helped my mind. I'm calmer than I used to be. It's also something we can do together. It's nice to have a common pursuit with your wife.
And it is nice. How long have you all been married?
How long have we been married?
Oh, well, we've been married for 18 years, and then we lived together and had 3 children for 10 years just to see if it was going to work out, okay?
Kind of a dry run?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long dry run. But 28 years, so you've been together.
Yeah.
And I don't know you all that well, but every time I've been with you or had the opportunity to sit down and talk to you, it seems like you do have a wonderful relationship, which is quite enviable in this day and age. Is that the key, to like each other?
We like each other, yeah. I like when she comes in a room, I'm very happy to see her.
What do you think it is, Trudie? It's nice to see, and I'm sure a lot of people are like, damn, why can't we have what they have?
I don't know, but we had a wedding anniversary last summer, and our daughter Mickey got up, and she said a lot's been made of our parents sort of loving each other and being so romantic and all that. But the truth is, they really like each other, and I was very touched by that our kids sort of saw that. We do really like each other, and we have lots of fun together, and sort of like, I laugh at his jokes. I think that's
The only one.
it's probably why it's lasted this long, because I'm the only person that laughs at all his jokes, and all of them, even if I've heard them 100 times.
You did something funny recently. There was a Rainforest Action Network auction, and you sweetened the pot, I understand. You offered to throw in Sting, who you said would explain tantric sex. Now, I know you probably thought I would never bring this up, Sting, that this just isn't in my wheelhouse. But having said that.
Well, I didn't say that exactly. I mean, I sort of thought, you know, let's do something, like, let's create something useful out of this old chestnut.
So to speak.
What do you mean, old chestnut?
I'm not you, the joke.
Oh, the joke.
Yeah, exactly. But
So we raised like $26,000, didn't we?
yeah, I mean, is it amazing to you that that one line has been, I mean, resurrected time and
It's
time
20
again?
years old.
I know.
20 years old, that line.
Doesn't surprise me at all, actually.
Why?
Sex sells. Let's face it.
Here's another tweet. Oh, this is actually, I thought was a nice tweet. Do you guys Twitter, whatever?
We don't tweet.
All right, this question is from T. Matlack. Why do you think you've been able, Sting, to stay true to your moral compass where so many other stars fell? It's sort of grammatically strange, but you get the idea of it.
I don't know the answer to that. What's the answer, darling?
It was a question to you.
I know. Why have we kept our moral compass? Well, I think it's very just bad luck to be a model for people. You know.
Well, maybe that's the key.
How do you define moral compass?
I guess what this person is saying, true to your values, committed to your cause, living your life in a way that you feel is good and appropriate and exemplary in some ways.
Well, that's what we do. We try as much as possible to live an exemplary life. I can't say it, but never mind do it.
We're very, we're conscious we have a lot. We've been very richly endowed with many things, and I was brought up to give back. My mum cleaned the local church, and she sort of wanted always for us to give back into the world. She was a very spiritual person, and we've raised our kids to give back wherever they can. And I think that's it, to be kind and compassionate. Those are two qualities in life that you can't overemphasize. If everybody is kind and compassionate, we have no war, we have no sickness on the planet. It would be an easier, fairer place.
Sting, you've called the X Factor, to switching gears pretty significantly, you've called the X Factor appalling and TV karaoke. It's coming to the States thanks to Simon Cowell. Why do you think that these kinds of shows are so appealing, and why are you so anti them? Because after all, they have brought us some pretty talented people, right?
They have, but my problem with it is that they seem to want the contestants to conform to a pre-existing stereotype. They already exist. I think the real X factor is being unique. It's being absolutely, so when you sing, you sound like nobody else. It's a unique fingerprint, and I feel that's not what's encouraged in these shows. They want you to sound like Whitney Houston, or they want you to sound like someone else, but it's not unique.
Too manufactured?
It's far too manufactured. Don't get me into trouble again. I got into such.
Oh, that's okay. All right. Well, we can move on. So, in addition to raising money for the rainforest, you have a day job, Sting, which
I do have a day job, yeah.
You're kind of a famous singer, and you tour, of course, all over the world. Quite a lot. I mean, you rarely take a break, although you do sometimes. I know you guys go to Italy and all that, but you've got a new tour coming up, and you're going to be singing with the Royal Philharmonic, is that right?
Very excited.
Very fancy.
Very fancy. I borrowed an orchestra from the Queen, the Royal Philharmonic Concert Orchestra, and they're coming all around the world with me. I'm so excited and a little bit anxious because it's new territory, but it's so much fun standing in front of an orchestra and hearing them play my songs, my hits, in this new way, and I'm just thrilled.
And when does that start?
We start in Vancouver at the beginning of June, and then we'll be on the West Coast, then we'll be playing at the Met in New York, July 13th and 14th.
Excellent, excellent. So that
it's going to be great.
Should be a thrill. And you still love performing?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you ever think, oh God, I just don't want to sing this song another time?
No, I love my job. I love singing. And people pay you at the same time. I mean, it's a miracle. And no one asks for their money back. Well, no.
As far as you know.
As far as I leave the building before anybody can get the chance to do that.
And we talked about your love of yoga, both of you, and you actually made some yoga tapes, right?
Yes, I brought out three different fitness tapes for Gayam. The first is yoga and meditation, and then a Pilates one, and then we've done a ballet and sculpt one, which has just been released.
So if everyone does yoga, will they look as good as you? Really, both of you are kind of disgusting, I just want to say. You're both in such ridiculous shape.
We both have this really strong ambition to get to be 100. So we need our precious vehicle. This is it, the only one that we'll have. You can trade in your cars, but you can't trade in the body. It's the only one you have. So we like to maintain it, big time.
It's 50% vanity and 50% discipline. In my case, anyway.
No comment.
Are you guys reading anything interesting right now? Because, you know, I did, when Sting wrote his book, I did a profile of him, and I know he loves literature, and people may not know this, how he used to sing musicals with the, didn't your mom play the piano, Sting? Yeah, she was a piano teacher, right?
No, she played the
No,
piano.
she played the piano.
player.
Used to sing Gershwin and Richard Rodgers and all sorts of things, which I always thought was fun, and a lot of people probably don't know that about you. But you're also a pretty voracious reader, aren't you?
I am. I read at least 3 or 4 books all at the same time.
Really?
The book I've most loved recently was Gore Vidal's Julian. It's about the Emperor Julian in the 4th century. It was very interesting. What else have I read?
How about you, Trudie? Do you like to read a lot, or?
I do. Well, I'm a bit dyslexic, so reading it's harder, but I get so engrossed when I do fall in love with a book. And my latest passion is Hilary Mantel's Wolf Hall. Chronicles the life and times of Thomas Cromwell during Henry VIII's reign.
Wow.
Beautiful read.
So not only are you committed to this cause, you're very erudite as well. I just thought we'd end on that, because nice to hear what people are reading and the fact that you do love books, something that more people need to do, right?
Oh yeah, and I like books too. I tried the digital book, but I like
the Kindle?
I like the smell of the paper and the feel of it and the cover, and I like that.
It
I'm
is nice
old-fashioned
though
like
when
that.
you travel though to be able to have everything in one place.
I agree, but
I
still
have
like,
one, but I haven't really started using it. I'm the same way. It's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, right?
That's true. That's true.
Well, thank you both for talking with us. I hope it's
Thank
a
you,
hugely
Katie.
successful concert, and thanks for letting us eavesdrop on the rehearsal. That was pretty thrilling.
Ah, you're welcome. Thanks
you.
for coming along today.
Thank you.
Thank you to
Thank you,
Bill.
Thank you, as always.